Hello friends, welcome to Knowledge India once again. We are going to talk about AWS CloudTrail service in this particular tutorial. Now there are many topics to be covered related to CloudTrail, and hence what I have tried to do this time is that I have divided it into logical smaller tutorials, right? So I request you to go ahead and see that you know this particular series in the right order. You will find the link for the playlist in the description section. It would be better that you go ahead and watch it via that playlist link so that you are able to see the CloudTrail videos in the right order. Okay, so as you can see on the screen now, in this set of tutorials, we are going to see CloudTrail from scratch. We'll try and understand what the service is, how does it help us in terms of auditing and monitoring stuff. How does it come together with SNS, with CloudWatch alarms? What can you do for the integrity and many other things? So let us get started and you will understand everything as we go along. First of all, those of you who are new and in case you don't know, what is CloudTrail? Uh, in order to understand CloudTrail, you should be knowing that how does AWS handle any of the requests which we give. Now, all of you have gone ahead and you would have done already a lot of operations on AWS. It could be creation of an EC2 instance, terminating it, going ahead and creating an S3 bucket, modifying a security group and things like that. All of us understand that you can go ahead and do that in any of the following manners, which means you can go ahead and do it from the management console, GUI method, or you can write a command via CLI, or you can go ahead and do it programmatically, right? Via any of the programming languages. You can write a program in, let's say, Java, C Sharp, PHP, and things like that, and you can call the respective API call, and that would execute the necessary action for you. Now, uh, when you actually call these actions, irrespective of any of these methods, at the AWS end, an API gets called. And whenever an API call happens on the AWS side, it gets recorded by CloudTrail. Yes, that's what CloudTrail is. It just records all the API calls which are happening in your account. Please understand all the AWS API calls which are happening. Some examples, let's say if you do launch an EC2 instance, then the API call which you do is run instances, EC2 run instances, right? If you want to terminate an instance, it is EC2 terminate instance. In the same way, for S3 create bucket, right? And delete bucket and things like that. So whenever you execute any such actions, an API is getting called and CloudTrail records that. Now, what is the benefit? The benefit is that CloudTrail records all the details related to your action and writes it in the form of logs and delivers that log into an S3 bucket of your choice, right? Now, once it has got written into a log file, you can go ahead and look into that log and find out a lot of stuff. You can find out all the details related to that action. For example, who called that particular API, right? When was it called and things like that, right? You can find out all such details. If you want to find out that what went wrong, for example, what parameters were passed, in a particular API, you can do that as well, and that can help you in troubleshooting. In addition to that, you may also choose to create certain alarms. For example, let's say uh, you want that whenever an EC2 instance gets terminated, right? Or let's say whenever somebody stops an EC2 instance into your production account, in your production AWS account, you want to get an alert. So you can just go ahead and basically create an alarm on that particular action. And what would happen is CloudWatch will actually look for that particular action. And when that action happens, you'll get an alarm. You may choose how to get it via SNS. You may get as an SMS. You may get as an email, or other mechanisms, right? So you can go ahead and do all of that. So that's what CloudTrail is in a shorter way. Now let us go ahead and understand more about it. So CloudTrail is a web service that records all AWS API calls, right, and delivers it in the form of log files to you. So what all gets recorded in that log file? The identity of the API caller, who called that particular API, at what time it got called, from which API address that call happened, right? When that API call happened, what all parameters got passed. So for example, if you want to terminate an EC2 instance, you have to pass the instance ID. But when you have to launch an EC2 instance, in case of EC2 run instances, you have to give so many parameters, right? So if you actually refer the documentation, you would understand that for every API call, a lot of parameters are required. And hence, whenever an API call is happening, all the parameters which have been provided or passed, CloudTrail records that. So later on, when you want to refer, this can actually help you a lot. The response elements returned by the AWS service. When an API call happens, in return you get something, right? For example, uh, uh, let's say if you are trying to let's say create an EC2 instance, probably you will get back the instance ID, which is automatically generated ID from the AWS side. There might be few more parameters. It differs from every API to API, but the point is, for that API, whatever response comes back, that also gets recorded by CloudTrail, right? So those are the things. We'll try to see more that how does a particular log entry look like. Now I'm logged in to the AWS Management Console, and we will go ahead and uh, look into CloudTrail service. Please see that I am logged in here in KI3 account. This is a separate AWS account. The reason why I'm mentioning this here is as we move forward in our tutorial, we will see that uh, how do we actually ensure that CloudTrail logs generated in one account get delivered to an S3 bucket in other account. And there is a really good advantage there, right? Because of which we do it. So I'll talk to you about it in a while. Now in this KI3 bucket, KI3 account, we will go ahead and look at the CloudTrail service. This is a newly created account, just created few days back. So I've not done any change as such till now, and we are kind of starting from scratch here. Okay, so I'm there in the CloudTrail dashboard. As you can see, if I go here, you'll be able to see North Virginia, Ohio, and everything, things like that. So in every region, as you can see, um, at different times, there are a few activities which have happened. In the other regions, we are not able to see uh, much stuff happening. Most of the things are there in the North Virginia region. So first, let's understand these are the most recent events recorded by CloudTrail. To view all events uh, for the 90 days, go to event history. Event history is there on the left hand side. So some time back, guys, good thing happened that AWS enabled CloudTrail by default. When I say by default, it enabled recording of events for past 90 days by default, right? Some time back that was not there, but uh, currently the way it works is you just set up your account and by default, events are getting recorded and you are able to see all the events for the past 90 days. So if I go to event history, I'll be able to see all of these things which have happened. And as you can see here, the dates, you are able to see the dates and the time when a particular event has happened. So each and every entry is an event, right? So let us try to see, open a particular event and understand that what it is. Let's say I'll try to open this one, create bucket. So you see that you can even download all of this things. Let's see if I can download this in JSON. Let's try to see here itself, guys. If you see, um, They should have made this a bit bigger. Let's see how can we do that. Yeah. So here if you see, uh, using AWS access key, which AWS access key was used, and in which region in US East 1, an event ID is there, create bucket. Okay, good. We can also see resources referenced. KI3 was the resource name. Okay, which was actually created because of this. Username was root, source IP address from where the IP address, from which IP address the request came, and things like that. Was it a read-only type of event? No. Rather, this is something. I mean, this was not like describe or get or that type of thing, right? So that's why you have read-only as false. At what time this particular event happened, you are able to see all of that, right? There was no error happened, so error code is empty, of course. You can go and look at something else. Let's say console login. So if in the console login you see, you are able to see the time from which IP address it came and things like that. You can very quickly go ahead and look at the events of the past 90 days here. You can also basically filter on any of the fields if you want. You can select a particular time range and things like that. And here, if you want, we can actually try to do this. Let's say, yeah, we can do this way. So this is the this is one particular thing. Type root principal ID. Principal ID is basically account number. Then in the ARN from the root user, this particular action or event had happened, right? Account ID is their access key ID is null. Event time, event source. This is basically console login, so that's why there is no access key ID here, right? Because in order to do console login, you will be providing username, password. Source IP address is their user agent. You are able to see that uh, using Mozilla Firefox browser, basically, person was trying to do this, all such details. Request parameters null, response elements was success. Um, of course, in request parameter, it is not recording. It would not record the password and thing which was given, right? So that's why for security purpose, it is not recording in this case. Response elements, you can see that it was success. So after that, some additional event data is there. Whether it was mobile version, no MFA was used, no, and all such things. So coming back to CloudTrail dashboard, there is something called a trail, right? Uh, so till now we did not do any setup here. These events are getting recorded by default, and you'll be always be able to see the events for the past 90 days. In addition to this, if you want that the events which are getting recorded, they get written to a log file and they get delivered to an S3 bucket, then you can go ahead and create a trail. So let me go ahead and create a trail. So I'll give it some name. I'm going to call it KI trail. Okay. Apply to all regions, creates the same trail in all regions and delivers log files for all regions. So you may choose to basically apply this trail to all regions. So basically in all the regions, a copy of this will get created. And what will happen is whatever S3 bucket you will specify from all the regions, it will get delivered to the same S3 bucket. So, well, the cost of CloudTrail is not a lot, hence mostly it is recommended that you enable it in all the regions, right? So that you may get alerted if something is going wrong and everything gets recorded. So I'll just choose here yes. Management events. Uh, Management events provide insights into the management operations that are performed on resources in your AWS account. So you can see the default thing is all. So all management events, or you want to capture only read only or write only or none, right? So you can go ahead and choose that. Now let's understand when you say all the management events, it means let's say create bucket is a management event. EC2 run instances is also uh, a kind of, it is a management event. Uh, but these would be write only, right? Because or these are write types. These are changing something. The read types would be something like um, describe instances, get bucket list, right? So now these are basically uh, read type of stuff. So what's recommended is that at least for management events, write events you should surely record. There is no harm in recording all the events because we already discussed that for the read type of events, the response part doesn't get recorded. So you don't have to worry uh, about about the storage cost and things like that. So we'll let it be all here. Next is data events. So I was talking to you some time back that there are two things, management events and data events. What are data events? Data events are basically those events which happen on a particular resource. Currently, the data events are supported for S3 and Lambda only. Okay, so uh, within S3, if you see what are the data events. So when you actually try to execute uh, some API which is related to a particular object within the S3 bucket, right? For example, uh, if you try to say download a file from S3 bucket, right? So you will say get object, right? If you want to upload a file to an S3 bucket, then it will be put object. So if you want to record these things as well, then you may go ahead and enable data events for S3. For the Lambda service, if you want to record every time a particular Lambda function gets invoked, if you want to record that, then you will have to enable data event for that. Let me explain you with one more example. Think of a Lambda function. When you write a Lambda function, there will be a create Lambda function type of API, right? Which will create the function. So you may go ahead and create a function one time. But now this function will get invoked so many times. Every time somebody wants to use that function will be invoked. So create of that Lambda function was management event. Whereas invocation of that Lambda function will be a data event, right? So that's what it is, right? Um, okay, so we talked about both of these things. Now I'll talk about pricing of these two things separately. We'll not go there now. Next point is, so I'm not enabling data events here, guys. Next is create a new S3 bucket. In which bucket do you want to actually place all these logs, right? So you can go ahead and either choose an existing bucket. So if you do that, you will have to choose the bucket. Let's say, so I already have a bucket here called KI3. In this particular account, I'll go ahead and choose that. What is there in advanced? Log file prefix. If you want, you can specify some like folder structure you can specify. Okay. CloudTrail is intelligent enough to maintain a hierarchy on its own. I will show you that. So I'm just leaving it blank. If you want to encrypt your log files, you can do that as well. So in terms of encryption, as you can see, uh, if you click here, you'll understand that by default, the log files would be encrypted, right? Using S3 encryption, S3 default encryption. Using that, it will be encrypted. But in case you don't want to use the default S3 encryption, you may choose your own key as well to actually encrypt these files. So it's your choice, right? If you are using your own key, then for that key, some charges you will have to pay. Or you can just use the default S3 server-side encryption. You can enable log file validation. I will talk to you about this in more detail after a while. So what this would help is, how this particular thing helps is that you would be able to actually validate that no one has tampered or changed your log files, right? So once you enable this CloudTrail, a lot of files will keep getting delivered. right, to your S3 bucket. And we want to ensure that nobody goes and changes even a single file there, right? How will we do that? We would be able to do that by enabling this particular thing. And there is a mechanism through which you can go ahead and go ahead and run an integrity check. And as a result of that, you will be able to see that yes, nobody has actually tampered or changed any of the files. We'll talk about it more in a while. Send SNS notification. If you want, you can send an SNS notification. You can create a new topic, and then basically you can even subscribe to it. So let's try to, you know, just create something. Okay, so I'll go ahead and say create with this. Let's see. Okay, so a trail got created. Now, as you are able to see, the status is active now. This trail is working. It is for all the regions. Good. We will now try to go and look into our S3 bucket. The name of the S3 bucket is KI3, and we'll see whether our log files started coming there. So we'll go to S3. In S3, we'll go to our bucket KI3. And as you can see, a folder has been created called AWS Logs. If you go inside, there is a folder with our account number. Inside this, CloudTrail. And then for the different regions, folders have been created. And within this, we are operating in North Virginia. So US East 1, I'm not able to see. But anyway, if you go inside and try to see, a proper folder structure has been maintained. So basically AWS logs, account number, then the service CloudTrail, then in which region, then the year, then month, after that the date of the month, and then there is a file, right? All right, so as we discussed, in one S3 bucket, you can have the CloudTrail log files coming from different regions. So the way CloudTrail does that is CloudTrail maintains a very intelligent structure in the form of folders within that S3 bucket. So as you can see within your S3 bucket, you'll have folder like AWS logs, the account number, CloudTrail service name, then for which particular region, year, month, date, and then you will have the actual file. And this file also, if you try to see and understand closely, it will have a kind of timestamp structure. So you can understand that at small intervals these files get delivered uh, to this particular S3 bucket. And these files are again when it is delivered here, these are zipped so that the storage space on S3 gets reduced. So basically your cost gets reduced. Okay, so that's really good thing. So you can always go and very easily see and basically pick the log file which you want. Another important thing is when you actually specify the bucket, the S3 bucket within your account where you want the CloudTrail logs to come, AWS automatically updates the bucket policy for that particular S3 bucket. So let me show you here. This is our bucket. If you go to the permissions, you will see bucket policy here. Now in this bucket policy, you can see that this bucket policy got updated, right? Um, Let me try to make it a bit bigger for you, right? So you can see that it has, this bucket policy actually is enabling that CloudTrail service can actually write things here. So S3 get bucket ACL in the same way S3 put object, all these permissions has been given to actually this particular service cloudtrail.amazonaws.com. Okay, so with the help of this, because of this bucket policy, CloudTrail service is able to write to this S3 bucket. There is also an additional condition here in this bucket policy which says S3X AMZ ACL bucket owner full to control. This is basically uh, forcing a condition that the object which gets written to this particular bucket, the ACL on that object should be in such a way that the bucket owner gets the full control. Uh, we will talk about this in more detail in a separate video because S3 ACLs are actually a big discussion. So we will try to address it separately. So good thing is that the bucket policy gets updated automatically. You did not have to write anything, right? And the logs are getting delivered in our bucket here.